One of the biggest complaints about the current saga films for Star Wars all has to do with the Rey character. This came from The Force Awakens, where a lot of people said that Rey appeared to be a Mary Sue type character. Well, after watching The Last Jedi, I've actually come to believe that Rey is not a Mary Sue, and there is evidence hidden within Episode 8 that showcases that. In this video, I want to break all of that down, talk about some of the ancillary canon materials that showcase the struggles that Rey has had, but also explain why some people still believe that she is a Mary Sue character. Let's talk about it.
Hey everybody, real quick before I get into this video, I want to shout out Ashley Mackenzie Cook, who did the thumbnail for this video. She has an Etsy shop where she sells pieces of her art and apparel with her art on it. I'm going to link it in the description below. Ashley's awesome. Please go check it out.
What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. If you love Star Wars, subscribe to this channel and come back every Sunday. Sunday is Star Wars Day here on the Den of Nerds. I drop a bonus video in the morning and then do an episode of Nerds Talk Star Wars at night. Quickly, I want to shout out Ixie Morningstar, who got the nerd card question correct in my last video about Kylo Ren. You definitely know your stuff when it comes to Star Wars, Ixie, so shout out to you. And there'll be another nerd card question at the end of this video. All right, guys, let's talk about the drama surrounding the Rey character. Now, a lot of people in the community have labeled her a Mary Sue character. Now, the Mary Sue character label actually comes from a Star Trek character who basically just had the ability to get out of any situation and without much struggle progress in sort of amazing ways, okay? So that character label was attributed to Rey, and I think that the reason for that was because she was able to do a lot of things without a lot of struggle, at least shown on screen. So I want to get into this, break down some evidence from The Last Jedi books and other things that sort of disprove this. But I do want to say that when you just look at what is given to us on screen, it is actually kind of fair to call her a Mary Sue character because they don't actually show some of the struggles that I'm going to talk about in this video on the screen. So I guess it sort of falls to people who are really into Star Wars and follow the canon to explain to people that aren't why this is happening. And you can make your own judgments about that because I don't know if that's particularly fair, but I guess that's what I'm here to do. There is a sort of Deus Ex Machina thing that does happen in Star Wars, but this all has to do with the Force. So in the original Mary Sue basic label, there is no magic. There's nothing like that going on. Star Trek is a science fiction story, while Star Wars is more of a space fantasy. So the one thing I will say, especially when you were talking about a character that is tapped into the Force, is that there are going to be Deus Ex Machina moments and things that happen that defy logic because magic is essentially at play. I also want to talk about how we should really hold our judgment until we know more about Rey. This saga is currently not done, and I think we'll want to see what happens in Episode 9 before we can make our final judgment. But let's talk about some of the things that have happened in the life of Rey. First of all, you're talking about a character that was completely abandoned, right? Someone that grew up alone and was forced to scavenge on the desert plains of Jakku. Now, of course, living alone on the desert, it comes with its own set of challenges. You know, there's climate, there's other people that want to try to rob you, that want to try to take advantage of you. And Rey was forced at an early age to understand how to defend herself, how to have a hard edge, and how to survive by going into the starship graveyard and essentially finding pieces that are worth stuff to Unkar Plot, and then she scavenges them to get portions of food. So that in it of itself showcases that this character is definitely not a Mary Sue. And when we find Rey in The Force Awakens, it's clear that she is adept at hand-to-hand combat with her staff. And if you watch the way she always has that staff near her, you can tell that this is a person that has gotten into multiple conflicts. She literally does not feel safe unless she has that weapon near her. So I think that if you look a little bit closer, even within the film, you can sort of understand the struggles that she has been through. Now, when it comes to the Falcon and her just being able to get into that ship and fly it, it was said in the novelization of The Force Awakens that Rey would constantly sneak into the Falcon as a child and study it to to understand ships better when she went out to scavenge, and also to understand how to pilot different ships. So I think that's a pretty important piece to the puzzle. She didn't just come into the ship and know where everything was without being in there before. Now, once again, this isn't explained in the movie itself, but if you study the ancillary materials, you understand this. Now let's talk about the biggest gripe that people have with Rey from The Force Awakens, and this would be the Jedi mind trick. This is when she essentially tricks the stormtrooper that was played by Daniel Craig to let her out of her restraint and to drop her weapon. And this idea here is that, well, Rey has literally no training in the Force whatsoever, and yet she is able to pull off the Jedi mind trick. So A, why would she even know to do that? And B, how would she have the ability to do so? So let's break it down. And this is where the evidence comes in from The Last Jedi. When Luke Skywalker asks Rey what she knows of the Force, she answers him by saying that the Force is a power that helps Jedi control people and lift rock. And that might seem like a throwaway line, but really investigate what that means. That means that Rey has been told stories of the Jedi, either by Lor San Tekka, other people that study the Church of the Force, or just people that are passing on the mythological stories that they have heard. But in either case, she is learning that the Jedi had the ability to control people with their mind. So as a young child, this is something that was formed inside her, okay? She also thinks that they can lift rocks, which kind of showcases her ability to do other things later on. But central to the idea of her doing the mind trick, you have to understand that when she was in a stress situation like that, she just learned that the Jedi were real, and she has just learned that she has some of the ability of the Force by pushing back against Kylo Ren in the interrogation, that it's a natural jump in logic for her to figure out that the way out is to try to control the stormtrooper with the power of the Force. Now, how could Rey actually be strong enough to do that without any training? Well, I think once again, there is evidence in The Last Jedi that perfectly explains this. She is a conduit for the light side. There's a lot of talk in The Last Jedi about darkness rising and the light to meet it. Both Snoke and Luke make multiple references to this fact. The light side and the dark side put each other in check. This was also delved into in the current run of the Darth Vader comic, where Jocasta Nu tells Anakin, or Vader at the time, that there will be others to replace the Jedi. Even now, the light side is finding conduits and being powerful within different people throughout the galaxy. And that is exactly what Rey is. She is the Force awakening. And because there is not a lot of other Force sensitives around, her power is going through the roof. So put two and two together here. You have a young girl who has faced all sorts of struggles. She's a survivor. She is adept at doing that. And the story she is told about the Force is that Jedi could control people and lift objects. She has an interaction with Kylo Ren, who is an infamous dark side user, a powerful villain within the galaxy, and she's able to use the Force to push back against his mind probe. Then she's sitting there alone with a guard, and she knows she has to get out of there. So her natural inclination would be to try to use the power she had just used to control the guard to basically free her. And the ability for her to do so is just tied to the fact that she's a conduit for the light side. Now, lastly, before I get off this video, I do want to explain that I do see a problem with the Rey character, and that is just that her struggle is not shown on screen. She has done a number of different things and seems to just be able to always get out of tough problems and just showcase an amazing amount of strength. I mean, the fact that she lifts all of those rocks at the end of The Last Jedi, when even Master Yoda seems to struggle to lift even, smaller or big objects, that does cause a problem. And I think that if the writers are going to treat Rey with kid gloves, then it does make the argument that she could be a Mary Sue character. But I think this has more to do with the editing and the progress of the stories themselves. I mean, if you look at what happened with the Luke Skywalker character, he's a kid who, with no training whatsoever, is able to block laser bolts with his eyes down. And by the end of the first movie, he nails a shot with a torpedo that's next to impossible by using this power that we call the Force. So I think that Luke Skywalker is literally just as Mary Sue or Deus Ex Machina as the Rey character is. But the big difference here is that Luke goes through some serious on-screen tragedy. He has a major conflict and a call to action that is absolutely crazy. When he comes home and his aunt and uncle are literally burning and their bodies are on fire and he has to look away, that is a huge moment for the character. So just because we don't get a similar scene with Rey, I think it really puts the question mark on a lot of the things that she's able to do. So I do agree that Rey needs to struggle more on screen. She needs to have some obstacles to overcome that are challenging for her, but I do not think that she is a Mary Sue, and I think there's actually logical explanations for everything that she accomplishes in the movies so far. I guess we're just gonna have to wait to see what happens in episode 9, but I think the jury is still out on the Rey character, and perhaps they'll explore her dark side a bit more, which will make her a little bit more relatable and take her off the pedestal that some people believe Disney is having her stand on. So those are just my thoughts about the Rey character and why I do not think she is a Mary Sue, but I want to open this up to you guys. I mean, do you agree and see the logic in the argument I put forward that basically if Rey thought that's what Jedi did and was experiencing the power of the Force because she's a conduit, the Jedi mind trick makes sense? Or do you think that I'm reaching? Please let me know. Let's have a conversation about this in the comment section below. All right, let's check that nerd card really quickly. I want to know, what is the name of the ship that Rey originally wanted to use to escape the TIE fighters when leaving Jakku? The ship gets blown up and they're forced to use the Falcon, but what was the name of the original ship that Rey wanted to use to escape the TIE fighters in The Force Awakens? Answer that question in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.